Hi everybody, happy Tuesday. Everyone is off to a great start with math and spelling this week, so we're going to use this time to look a little more closely at the polar biome. Yesterday and today, I've been talking to you about the Arctic. That's the part of the polar biome that's at the top of our Earth. Okay, at the bottom, we have Antarctica, and we'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow and the animals that live there. But today, as we keep thinking about the polar Arctic, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the environment and about the animals that live there and how they survive. First, let's talk about the environment. When you look at this picture, what do you see the most? That polar bear is pretty awesome. But what do you see? Water and ice. Water and ice make up a huge part of life in the Arctic Circle. I want to show you today something really, really cool about icebergs. Icebergs are huge chunks of ice that have broken off from bigger masses of ice called glaciers. Icebergs look huge when you see them on the water. Look at this one that the bear's standing on, right? But what a lot of people don't realize is that what we see above the water when we look at an iceberg is only the tip of the iceberg. Most of the iceberg is under the water. This gives you an idea for why and how the water is so cold, which will be an important thing to remember in our experiment later. Let me show you this bowl of water and zoom you in a little bit on it. I filled this glass bowl with as many ice cubes as I could, okay? Now, because of the way the ice cubes are looking right now, I want you to pretend that this is an iceberg in the Arctic. And pretend that just like in this picture, that a bear is standing right here on top of this little iceberg right here. Look, I could even move the whole thing because once I put the ice cubes in, they kind of all stuck together. You can hear it even. So, we've got a little polar bear right there maybe, right? Look where most of the iceberg is, friends. The part where you see that bear standing is a tiny, tiny, tiny part of this iceberg. Let me see if I can lift the bowl so you can see. If you're looking at the surface of the water, how much can you see above it? And then look at how much of that ice is below the water. So little of the ice is visible that it gives you an idea. When you see pictures like this of the Arctic, it shows you that really there's even so much more ice than you realize. It also tells you how cold that water is. I also want to talk to you a little more about the animals that live in this icy, icy world. Today I want to especially tell you a little bit more about the polar bear, about seals, and about my favorite Arctic animal, the Arctic fox. So, first I'm going to read you this short book about Arctic foxes. It's called All About the Arctic Fox. Be on the lookout for adaptations. I also was on the lookout for the EA and EE vowel teams. I circled those words. We'll take a quick look at them when I get to them. All About the Arctic Fox. I have my table of contents and a bunch of really short little chapters. Appearance. The Arctic fox is one of the smaller animals in the Arctic. They have short legs and weigh between 6 and 17 pounds. So they're pretty small. Wow. Look at that face. Despite their short muzzles and short ears, the Arctic fox has a great sense of smell and excellent hearing. Oh, I missed one. I see an EA vowel team right there. Adaptations. The Arctic fox is built perfectly for the cold Arctic area. In the winter, the Arctic fox has a thick white coat. This coat keeps the fox warm in the winter and acts as camouflage in the snow. Did you know the Arctic fox has the warmest fur of any animal in the world? Even warmer than the polar bear. The fox's other adaptations are short ears and a short muzzle. This helps the fox's body keep heat inside. The fox also has a long bushy tail that it can use as a blanket when it sleeps. There's another one. I didn't even catch them all. Guys, when you read, EE and EA are all over the place. And the more you read, the easier it's going to be to remember which are which, okay? Use that reading memory. The Arctic fox is also built perfectly for the warmer Arctic summers. As the winter comes to an end, the fox molts or sheds his heavy white fur. Look at him. Kind of crazy looking, huh? The fox's summer coat has thinner fur and is gray and brown. This helps the fox blend in on the tundra and in rocky mountain areas. Tundra is like the frozen part, okay? Where it's still ground and it might look green and brown, but it's still really, really cold and flat. Here's a fun fact. The Arctic fox buries the animals he hunts in a hole. These holes are called caches. When the winter comes, if the fox can't find food, he can go dig up the food in the cache. Guys, it's like he has his own fridge. The Arctic fox is a great predator. It can run quick and catch smaller prey, such as Arctic geese, lemmings. Those are like little gerbils, guys. They're like little Arctic gerbils. And I'm going to send you a really cool video of an Arctic fox hunting lemmings and how they do it. It's incredible. It also hunts birds and fish. The Arctic fox is also a scavenger. When there are no other animals to hunt, the fox will search for berries, insects, and even seaweed. Guys, seaweed is a two-part word with two vowel teams, EA and EE, in the same word. See? Weed. Sometimes the Arctic fox will even follow a polar bear to see if he will leave, there's another one, any leftovers that the fox can eat. But he better watch out. The polar bear might want to eat the Arctic fox, right? Life in the Arctic is hard, and the Arctic fox has many enemies he needs to watch out for. The Arctic fox's 3 top predators are polar bears, the Arctic wolf, and humans. This is because humans can use the fox's warm fur to make clothing, such as jackets or hoods. People live in the Arctic Circle too. Families. In the early spring, Arctic foxes get ready to start their families. A male and female fox work together to dig a den. Fox cubs are born inside the den. There are normally 7 to 15 cubs born in a litter. The cubs are born blind and are small enough to get eaten by an eagle. Eagle is a really cool EA vowel team word, guys. Fox parents keep their babies safe by hunting for them. If a cub is in danger, the parent fox will bark at them. The cub will know to get back to its den. That's just a tiny bit about Arctic foxes, guys, but really, they're my favorite favorite Arctic animal. So how do Arctic foxes, polar bears, seals keep warm? Well, they have slight differences in how they keep warm, but we can talk about them both with one experiment. So guys, have you ever heard the word blubber? Blubber is like a thick, fatty layer that animals like seals have to keep them warm. Blubber is like a thick rubber mat under their fur, and it keeps all the warmth in, and it keeps them cozy. Whales also have blubber. Now, people often also say that polar bears and other Arctic animals have blubber. They really don't. They do also have a really warm layer of fat that looks like this. Rather than one big, thick sheet kind of shape of fat like blubber, like seals and whales have, the fat that polar bears have is like a bunch of cells or pods of fat all squeezed together. These are marshmallows. You can try this at home too. So Alden hot glued a bunch of marshmallows together for me, and this is exactly what that fat layer is like for these animals. So for the polar bear and the Arctic fox, this layer is their first and really, really important defense against the cold. Really, really cold. You can see, based on what we saw with the iceberg, that the water is really cold, and polar bears are swimmers. So they need this not just for when they're out hunting, living, and take care of their babies, but also when they're in the water. So again, see how it kind of mashes together? If you squeeze it together nice and tight, it keeps all the warmth in and it keeps the cold out. We're going to take a closer look at this layer in a minute, but the other really important thing for both the polar bear and the Arctic fox, you heard about it in the little book, is their fur. The Arctic fox has the warmest fur of any animal on Earth. The polar bear is not far behind. Their fur is not like a dog or really probably like anything you've ever felt. It's coarse and just, even though it's soft, it has a really different feel to it. It's probably the most important thing that keeps the Arctic fox warm, and it's very, very important for the polar bear too. So they have their fur and they have this layer of fat. Seals have their blubber, which is just like this, but it's not a bunch of these different cells pushed together. It's kind of just like one smooth, really thick layer. Okay, so let's take a closer look at this fat layer that keeps all these animals, whether it's blubber or whether it's shaped differently, keeps all these animals so warm. So I'm gonna need my iceberg because I need the water. And if you try this at home, you're basically seeing what it's like to be a polar bear, okay? And how this animal stays warm. What you need is 2 bags like this. If I had a little smaller one, I would have used it because I only had another big one and also kind of helping it stay close to my hand with a rubber band. All right. In this plastic bag, I have the closest thing that we're able to find to this type of substance. This is vegetable fat. It's called shortening. And it's very, very, very similar to the same stuff that polar bears, Arctic foxes, all this nice layer that God gave these Arctic animals to stay warm. Now, you might use big marshmallows if you're a polar bear. The Arctic fox has the same type of thing to stay warm, but it would probably look more like tiny mini marshmallows since it's a much, 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 much smaller animal, right? So I've got my fat, I've got my hand ready, and before we do that, I'm gonna put my hand like straight into this really, really cold water. I've been letting my iceberg sit in this water for a long time. Oh my goodness. This is so, so, so cold, guys. It's almost hard to keep my hands in for more than a couple seconds. It's really, really cold. I have to take my hand out. The plastic does nothing for me. So I don't want you to think like, oh, this is working because of the plastic. The plastic does nothing. It's just keeping my hand dry inside, okay? Oh, I mean, really cold. So if you try this at home, make sure before you try being a polar bear, try being us. Put your hand straight into this. You can even put your hand in without the bag, and it will feel even colder because your skin cells react to having that cold water right on them. Really cold. Okay, so now it's time to be a polar bear. I would not survive very long in the Arctic at all. Our skin is not adapted for the Arctic. God made our skin to live in warmer climates or to cover up and use other things to stay warm if we go to those climates, if we're hanging out in those other biomes, right? So I'm opening up my bag. I'm going to put my polar bear paw inside here, and I'm going to use my other hand to kind of cover my whole inside hand. I want to work the fat around so that my polar bear paw is covered as much as I possibly can with the fat. So it's kind of like even me looking more and more like a paw shape. You're going to cover it as much as you can with the fat. Guys, my paw is ready now. It's even more the shape of a polar bear paw, isn't it? Okay. Do you see any skin? Can't see much skin anymore. Let me just make sure I get plenty of coverage here. This is really cool. I hope some of you get to try this. Okay, so I've got my paw all ready. My hand's not in the goop because it's in my other bag. But I've covered it all up. I'm totally surrounded in this fat. Oh, here's one big piece I can add in. All right, now I'm ready to go swimming. I'm gonna go hunt a seal. Here I go. I'm gonna dive in. Guys, it's hard for me to tell you what this feels like. I don't feel the water at all. Not at all. I can't feel any coldness. I can't even feel coolness. My hand is completely warm inside its bag. In fact, it's getting warmer by the second since the heat is trapped. And like this hand, that the heat's kind of going out into the air, the heat is trapped. My hand is actually warmer right now than before I put it into this fat glove. This is how a polar bear stays cozy. Add on a thick, thick, thick layer of some of the warmest fur on Earth, and you are adapted to survive in the Arctic. So, I hope some of you can try this. It's so surreal to put your hand deep into this ice bucket and not be cold at all. It helps you understand how God made every animal so perfectly to survive in their perfect home. So I think that's all for today. Guys, you think of anything else? I love talking to you every day. I'm going to send you this experiment. I'm going to send you this little booklet. You can make your own at home if you want. I'm going to send you some other cool stuff to learn about these animals. But I hope you guys have a great day and stay warm.